about AI and game design education. So I know that we went over this a little bit, but like my background and what it is that we're talking about today involves taking a step back here. So I am an assistant professor of digital media with a specialization in game studies and game design. I think design and studies might be flipped in my official title. I'll have to look that up. What this means at Georgia Tech is that I am officially in the Department of Literature, Media, and Communication, but I teach in our subunit, which is digital media, which is our graduate program. So I teach undergraduates in the LMC, Literature, Media, Communication. I teach MS students in digital media, PhD students in digital media, and then MS students in our HCI program. So it means that I get a lot of different types of students, but it also has some like odd connotations to what we're talking about here today, which is AI use in game design. So I teach all of these assorted classes, as well as overseeing the master's projects and PhD projects in my lab that is called the Gamepad Lab, the Game Philosophy and Design Lab. So this leads to this very strange confluence of different students, different programs, all these things that are going on. And when I first started teaching there, we have an AI policy. Now, because I'm in a literature, media, and communication, the literature is predominant here. We have a strictly no AI use in our department. Because while I teach games, a lot of my colleagues teach things like literature. So, you know, if you're teaching a class on Shakespeare, you probably don't want people using LMMs to be writing their papers and doing these sorts of things. So even within my own, the syllabi that I write for all of my classes, I have a disclaimer that says, you are not allowed to use AI. And then I need to go through that every semester to be like, I mean, you can't use it in your writing, but when we're designing games, I want you to use all tools. Because AI is just a tool. AI tools are just tools like any other game design software or anything like that. So this is where this question comes of like, is AI cheating or plagiarism? In the context of somebody writing a final paper about 20th century American literature, yeah, I guess it is plagiarism. You know, you don't want to be using that. In the context of, hey, make a post-colonial game about monsters for me, no, it is not plagiarism. And I always encourage my students to be trying to use all of these new tools. This partially aligns with this idea of like, how is it that industry is using AI? Because as much as we want to make sure that our teaching is separated to a certain extent from like what is happening in industry, we also need to realize that we're training people who want to go and work in industry. So me being like, no, you can't use any AI tools, that is like incorrect or immoral is not necessarily a helpful way for me to teach my classes. So I've been as open as possible in embracing AI tools, which is kind of scary because for those of you who teach, I don't use AI tools. So telling people that they can use a thing that I know nothing about at first was, didn't feel so great. Wasn't sure what was going to come of it. But we've had a lot of like really interesting results over, I'm just finishing my second year at Georgia Tech, so I've been teaching 4 semesters now. So how have my students used AI? They have made AI art, they've made AI music, they have done a lot of AI vibe coding, and this is actually from this semester. I don't have these sorts of moves, but my students created a game prototype, and when you finish the prototype, this is the thing that played. And it actually fooled me because for a moment I was like, oh my, I'm so embarrassed that they have a picture of me, like they have me dancing. And it took me like the 2 to 3 seconds to go like, oh no, it's clearly AI. So they've done like funny things like this. They've done also a lot more meaningful work. So there are other uses, ... And I'm gonna pass this over to Audrey.
Hi everyone, my name is A.Chung. And I'm a digital media student at Georgia Tech, and one of Professor Ryan's students in his game design class this semester, yes. And so a little bit about me, I do UI UX design, digital art, and game development. And so I'll be talking about my team's experiences using AI in Professor Ryan's class and how it affected our workflow. And so for starters, I have done vibe coding for a different class before. And in my experience, I found that I wasn't really patient enough to be telling ChatGPT what to do. And this is partially because ChatGPT has given me functions that just don't exist. And this issue is a lot more prevalent the less data or documentation there is. And so because I'm starting to use Godot for this class, I didn't think it was a good idea to try vibe coding again. But I have used AI in other ways. So considering the limitations of generative AI, what have we used ChatGPT for? So, well, we do have a dedicated artist on the team. Art takes time to create. And so having worked mainly in front-end and game dev, I also like to output my code to look somewhat polished. And so it's been really helpful in giving me that little boost of motivation to keep coding. And so when there's no official art yet to populate the game, I have a folder of placeholder art, which is usually composed of images from Google or from ChatGPT. And I think it was around this time that I found out that if you tried being polite to ChatGPT, it would just waste more energy. And so I tried to use as little words as possible. So for this one art over here, I decided, pixelated art of cloudy lake. Whatever comes out, comes out. I'm not gonna ask twice. This kind of defeats the purpose of prompt engineering, but I think that's okay because it's not meant to be production-ready art. So in our final implementation, once my friend is done with all of her art assets, so I'm just gonna put it up here. This is all drawn by Savannah Mosley, my friend. She's a great artist. And we just dropped all of those in the game. And this is what comes out in our final production. So we've also used AI-generated music for our game since we don't have a music composer on the team, which I think my teammate produced on Suno. And so it fit the theme of our game. It took her a few iterations to find one that she really liked. And then we just pitched it down a little, and boom, background music. So while we have used AI-generated materials for our game, we also discussed our concerns over the ethics of artist compensation because of the way that the data has been harvested from publicly available works online. And my friend and I, being part of a community of artists online, we do share these concerns as well. And so in the end, we sort of landed on this sentiment that we will use what we really need since at the end of the day, we're just college students. And so that has been my experience with using generative AI in game design so far. And I'm interested in learning other avenues of generative AI, maybe as a tool for coming up with alternate game mechanics and more dynamic storylines. And with the current legal gray area surrounding AI, I'm really hoping for a royalty system being set up for artists. Like, I really like the idea of that. I feel like they tried to do it with NFT, but didn't really go anywhere. And so now I'm gonna pass the mic on to Melody, who has way more experience than I do.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Melody Ren, and I'm also Ryan's master's student, and I just graduated this year. I want to introduce one of an experimental AI workshops that we conducted in Ryan's game design course last year. So in this workshop, we want to explore, can we actually make a small game if we have no fundamental knowledge and only depend on different AI tools? And we also want to talk about the ethical implications and creative consequence of AI adoption. In the workshop, we let all students to make a very simple little game about capybara and anything they want, because at that time capybara was trending on the internet and just for fun, I think. And our workshop had 4 main activities: AI for narrative generation, game art, AI for music, and AI for coding. And each activity allows students to experiment with one AI tool. First, in the AI for narration, narrative generation part, we used ChatGPT. I believe it was the 3.5 ChatGPT model at that time. The students experiment with different prompting strategies and discovering that specific prompts about desired elements yield much better results. And after generating initial narratives, we introduced students to classic story structure and considered whether the AI-generated story followed effective story structure and would translate well to the gameplay. In the AI for game art part, we tried an AI tool called Scenario AI. It's an AI tool specifically designed for game art. And we use this AI to generate some character design, environment, and prepare assets for implementation. And I think the outcome is not very good because the quality of the generation art is very unstable in the workshop, and sometimes the capybara has 5 legs, and sometimes it's just a giant rat. And next, we want to make some background music or some music effect for this capybara adventure. So we used Suno AI to explore the music generation, and we taught the students how to craft effective prompts by combining style, emotions, instrumentation, rhythm, and vocals for their game, all using the prompts in Suno AI. And at last, we built this game using Godot with the assistance of ChatGPT again. Rather than like traditional tutorial like on the YouTube or in universities about how to use game engines like Godot and Unity, students prompt AI with some specific implementation questions like, please help me write some script about how to control the character's movement. So this kind of reverse the conventional learning approach as students learned on demand based on their immediate need. So, but also, although the ChatGPT generates the script really quickly, but we found that the outcome was not good because most students just get like a capybara glitching on the screen, or they even can't open the game because there are too many bugs. And we found that GPT also made up a lot of fake functions that even do not exist in the Godot system. And there's only very few students that get the functions they want. I remember there's a classmate that make a game called Capybara Clicker based on the cookie clicker. And you just keep clicking a capybara hundreds and thousands of times, then equipped him with different weapons and costumes. Yeah, I think after the workshops, the most valuable outcome emerged during our discussion about AI's role in game development. So students had a really heated debate about whether AI enhance creativity or threaten jobs, how much companies should rely on the technology, and where ethical boundaries should be set. Although these discussions we had some findings. First, prompt engineering significantly impact output quality. To generate script and art has a high quality, you cannot just type in like, please help me generate a capybara picture. You need to add a lot of prompt. And also, while AI could generate working code, understanding fundamental functions remain important for troubleshooting. And last but most important, as students major in digital media, human-computer interaction, and computer science, all of us are very worried about our future in game and other tech industries. I think, like Professor Kunis mentioned in his presentation, we may not be replaced by AI, but we can be replaced by people who is good at using AI. So in this situation, I think in the future, maybe students should somehow follow the trend, and instead of just put all of them effort into learning Unity and Blender like the old time. Thank you.
Great, not yet, or okay. So just as some like quick conclusions from like 2 years of doing this, there's been some interesting things that I've found with it in that I teach tools-based game design. Basically, it's just the idea that you don't teach students how to use Unity because then they learn how to use Unity rather than learning how to make games. So I have them consider like a wide range of their tools, everything from like Excel sheets to like pencil and paper as all being game design tools. So I like to think of AI tools in that way, but there has been some pushback. Some of the students don't like AI for all of the reasons that we're talking about today. Something really interesting in a classroom connotation with it is that some of them don't like it because they don't find the workloads to be equitable. So we do team-based game design, and I've had some students complain being like, I wrote all of my code fresh, and so just AI generated all our art. So, you know, it took me tens of dozens of hours to get all of my stuff done, and they did their stuff in like 30 minutes. So why do we get the same grade? So beyond the like common ethical things that we talk about within our, within like all of these issues that we have with AI, there are specific challenges within the classroom of trying to be equitable, trying to make sure that we're preparing the students correctly, and trying to make sure that it's not just like a loophole to stop them from being creative, but is actively encouraging them to be creative. So now, thank you for your time and attention, and we look forward to any questions that you would have. Oh, perfect. I always forget to mention this as well. This is my itch page. It's called Tubba Games Manufacturing Concern. It's an inside joke I named after my cat in a Simpsons quote. But any of the games that get made in my graduate classes go up onto this page if you want to go and check that. We're a couple semesters behind because there's a professor who is me and isn't putting them up very quickly. But there's going to be more in the next few weeks.
So I'll ask a question. I'll run this while I'm asking the question. Did you take a survey of the students' opinions regarding AI for games before they did the project and after to compare if their opinions and feelings changed over the course of this project? And next question, I'll run to you.
So I have not done a specific like survey beforehand. A lot of my results come from my the course assessments from the students or having conversations with them afterwards. I'm sure that all of you either remember this or in this situation now of starting your first like university teaching job and just being thrown into the deep end. And then, like, I remember being there in the first week and having conversations, like the first week of actually teaching and having conversations with other people in my department being like, can I let them use AI? Like it says in this, like in our handbook that they're not allowed to use AI for anything. So thrown into the deep end there. And then even over the past like 2 years of doing this, like the tools have gotten so much more sophisticated where running them in the like 2 years ago was like, oh, this isn't really helping that much, to now being like, oh, this can do a lot of heavy lifting. So surveys in the future I think would be really useful, but most of the feedback I've been getting is just through the typical class assessments that come in every year.
Hi. I guess my question is going to, because you mentioned like Blender being assisted by AI, and someone mentioned that there's like plugins that are the actual methods of being able to utilize that. I guess in your classes, are you seeing, I guess, what are the biggest shifts in how much AI is helping with particular things when they're making games, if that makes sense?
The biggest one every single semester, and this has more to do with the types of students that I get than anything else, is music. Because I find that because of the specializations that we have people who can code. We have artists. We have people who have experience like writing narrative, and not even just writing narrative, usually writing game narrative. But where we have a big shortfall is always in people that we don't really have people who know sound design or are trained in sound design. We don't have musicians necessarily. And music is one of these things that really has to be like so ingrained in the development process that I find so many of the projects are just like, and we're going to either get like freely available like open source songs, or we're going to use AI generation. So that's been the biggest thing, is it really helps with the sound design for sure. I think what is going to start happening is that there are going to be more of my students who already know how to code, who are vibe coding as a way of like filling in their code. But that's only something I've started to see this semester. I have one of my students, his name is Spencer, and he's really into it. And I think that he did some of his coding. They were the ones who made the me dancing AI at the end too. So there's it's in the past been music. I think moving forward it's going to be more coding.
Yeah, actually. Okay.
Sounded like you did.
So when it comes to, I guess, like creating 3D the characters, I guess, like, I don't know, do your students create full games, or is it like segments of games that you focus on? And then when it comes to making characters or environments that are 3D, how much is AI helping you kind of streamline that, or helping them streamline that, if that makes sense?
So with my students over 16-week semesters, I have them pitch to me what a full project would be. And then they make, we use terminologies like vertical slice, working demo, alpha, whatever it is that is just to show them like small. So I let them use like placeholders where they want to and to really focus on certain aspects of their development. A lot of my students have actually worked in 2D rather than 3D. I don't know if it's because they think it's going to be simpler when they start, or if the artists that have typically been in the class are just more just they want to work in 2D rather than 3D. When we have had 3D, that's usually where people use placeholders. That's usually where they're like, okay, like we rip some assets here and this is a placeholder, but this is what we would like it to look like. Here's some like concept art and that sort of thing. So because we have such short like development periods, I haven't seen anybody use AI yet for like filling in 3D modeling. But it is a thing that could come up. I expect that it might come up more likely with one of my master's or PhD students because they're working on longer term projects rather than just like one semester. So, you know, they've got 2, 3, 4, or multiple years. So I think it could come up then. There's
How did you distinguish between your student that used AI for the project versus the one that wrote all the code on their own? Did you have a different rubric, or does it matter?
For me, it doesn't matter because I consider them to be like tools that are, they are all game design tools. So one of the things that I do with my students that I've been switching up a little bit recently to more formalize it. I don't know if any of you have read Method for Design Materialization by Khaled, Barr, and Lassard. But essentially, it is a way of using GitHub and other tools to more precisely track your development as you go through your development, as a way of making it more accessible for third parties to understand how game design works, but also for you to better track and understand your decision making in your early stages. I have my students do this throughout the semester, and I let them use whatever tools they want to. So some of them choose AI tools. Some of them choose things that they're like, I already know Unity, so we're gonna build this thing in Unity. When it comes to my students who are doing art, they have 10,000 different tools that they're always like telling me that they're using there. So I consider the tools to be as equal as possible, but I'm realizing that the AI tools are starting to get like a little bit too quick with it. So far, it was, even 2 years ago, it was like, yeah, you can get it to spit out code, but then you had to go back and like fix most of this stuff anyway. So it felt like it was more egalitarian. Moving forward, I'm gonna have to like reassess this and see how it's being used and decide if I'm gonna keep allowing that, or if I'm, as you were mentioning, gonna have to switch up rubrics. If I'm gonna have to disallow AI for specific functions or allow it, or you know how it is when you're teaching, like you want all of your grades to be as equitable as possible. You want equality of effort and of credit for them. So it's ever changing because of how quickly these technologies are going. But short answer, so far hasn't been too big of a deal, but is definitely going to hit that tipping point where I'm going to have to be a lot more strict with it. Oh, I got a couple here.
So you said that because AI is getting so good, you might say, hey, you cannot use AI for this or that. Have you considered instead raising the bar so people have to use AI? So as AI gets better, wouldn't the market reaction would be that games would get better or more sophisticated and better art? So wouldn't that be more realistic? I'm not criticizing, I'm just asking, what do you think of this perspective?
This is an excellent question. Because all of, like, just like totally honest with you. All of my students are better game makers than me coming in. Like, they all have so much more technical ability than me. And sometimes I feel more like just trying to herd the kittens, so to speak, it's like, you know, like, let's go through here. With that said, though, one of my big things is to keep my classes as accessible as possible. So I am in a literature department. I have so many students who are really interested in making games, who maybe they only have the experience in like narrative writing, so they don't have the same technical skills. Or maybe they only have experience in one very specific skill at our school that typically is UI UX, where they're like, I can do all these things, I've never done it for games before though. So while I do like look at the very top end of my students in terms of experience and what they can build and think, yeah, let's like crank this up, I always want to make sure that I'm like allowing as many people as possible. Because the most common question I get before any of my courses start from students who want to take it are, do I need to code, do I need experience in games, or something that starts along the lines of, I really like games, but. And I don't want to raise things too high, because if you raise that floor too high, then you're like cutting people out. And I would love for, I want as many of the undergraduates who come into that program and are like, I want to study film, I want to convert them all to be games people. That's what I want by the end of it. I want to just get all of them in there so that we get more voices and all these things. So. It's always the temptation to be like, yeah, let's like really push this. Let's get these people who've been making games since they were like 8 years old to like go right max out to the top. But I want to leave it open too.
So one common problem with students' game projects is they horribly overestimate their ability and what they can accomplish in the time allotted. Do you find that AI pushes them to do even more of that, figuring they can do even more, or does it help them rein them in by giving them something realistic when they first start concepting?
There is nothing that I can do to make them be realistic. The only word that I say to them in our, I have a midterm proposal that goes out of like, lock in is what you're doing. And the comment that I've given on every single one of these projects in all of my courses over 2 years is feasibility. Let's cut this down. So I don't know if AI is making them think that they can do more, because they always think they can do everything, and it's always just me like cutting it down, cutting it down, cutting it down.
Plate and add more.
And I think Don also had a question.
No, we're not letting him ask it.
Okay, so my quick question was, and this is also for you as students, right? Like, have you noticed, like, I feel like with my students, I noticed some kind of resistance to using AI, except with freshmen. So aside from that, like people who are really wanting to get in the game industry and things like that, whenever we bring up AI, I always see a little, move towards the back, right? They're not super comfortable with it. And so I'm wondering if you see the same thing in your classes or with your, with your peers.
This is their first time doing a conference, so I have an answer, but I'm going to make you answer. Just, you only need to do one, and then no more attention. You don't need to do any. So answer the question.
Do you want to go first? Okay. Yeah, actually, many of my classmates are anti-AI because some of them want to be an artist, and so the AI will take their jobs. And so I mentioned in my presentation that our job may not be taken by AI, but just might be somebody good at using AI. So from my perspective, I think using AI will be a good tool and help us to get a job. Yeah. What about you?
For me in my grade, I feel like it's sort of a mixed bag. I have some friends who are very enthusiastic about using AI. Not for art, but like for therapy and writing, stuff like that. And on the other hand, I have seen those who shy away from it, mostly because of us being artists. And so we already know how much work it takes to make art, so we feel bad taking it away from other artists. But the sentiment so far has been pretty mixed, but there is an openness to using AI depending on the context.
Yeah, I just try and be as like blue sky as possible with them and just encourage them to try as many different things as possible. So, you know, if there's some of them who are really locked into wanting to use AI or not wanting to use AI, I almost think of it as the same as like, do you want to make a 2D game or a 3D game? Like, it's what you want to do and how you want to shape your project. And when I design my courses, they have to make a game at the end, and I give them the like barest bones. Like even with my graduate students, it's like we're talking about post-colonialism and monsters. I did a capstone with my undergraduates this semester, and literally I was just like, the game needs to be about something. Pick a cultural critique. It just needs to be about something. Make anything. So I treat the AI tools like that as well. They want to use them, they can use them. They don't want to use them, that's fine too.
That AI threatens your job. Do you think that AI would do a good job of critiquing the students' work or telling them how to make it more feasible? Do you use it also to accelerate your job, to write student recommendations, things like that?
So the biggest threat to my job is people like this. This is the next wave coming. This is the threat. And I'm watching the two of you. Remember all the good things that I did when you have power. More seriously, I don't know that AI threatens my role in terms of like a cultural critique. I don't know that AI has enough cultural context right now. It's good at spitting things out that it's already been told, but if it's it doesn't generate new, it doesn't think. It doesn't generate new information. It doesn't generate new, it's not the Terminator, I guess is what I'm trying to say. It's not the Terminator where it's gonna think and take us over. It is a thing that we need to feed information into it. So unless we feed all of the information that we have into it, which I don't think will ever happen, there are things that AI can do, but I think that our contexts are constantly changing. I have a really good example, but I don't want to use that example because people always use the example. I do a lot of work with like historical context. Things that we think would be locked in the way that we think about certain people and groups are constantly changing. Over the course of decades, there is a fluidity to it, and generally when we think about the past, we're not trying to remember the past, we're trying to contextualize it into the present. So we take things that were once considered like 100% to be evil, and then, well, maybe there's a little bit of gray area so that we can do these sorts of things. Like, we always use those sorts of context. So you couldn't ask an AI, like, was it right to use the atomic bombs? And get the totality of the answer in terms of like historical context, the way that we think about it now, why we think about it that way now, what that has says about power, these sorts of things. So I don't think in terms of cultural critique that an AI would ever be able to fully replace that because we would need to be constantly regenerating the information for it. In terms of like writing student evaluations and stuff like that, I don't know that AI has the sentimentality for it. Because when I write those sorts of, my favorite thing to do is to write reference letters, because it is a way of like, it is an activity that I didn't realize that I needed, to like put the way that you feel about a person into the context of how great they are, and then to like put that out there. I don't think AI does that. AI doesn't have the emotion to it as well. So I know that we can talk about emotion AI and all of these sorts of things too, but I think there's context and nuance and a lot of things that humans do that we don't necessarily have in AI. Could it be possible? Like, anything is possible, but I don't feel particularly threatened by it. I think that, I hope that all of you are enjoying like listening to me talk today a lot better than if I just fed all of the exact same words and information into a computer and had it like spit it out to you, even in an AI voice that is just my voice. I like to think that gesticulating and the changes in tone help, but that's maybe the best way that I can put it. I don't feel particularly threatened by AI in that scenario.
I'm a big fan of Ian Bogost, who used to teach at Georgia Tech, and I haven't really read anything he's written about AI or anything like that. I was curious, like, were you there when he was there? Do you have any influence on
I wasn't there when he was there because when he left, I'm the one they hired.
That's what I figured. Yeah.
So,
But
I met him.
yeah.
Like before a talk once, I shook his hand. It was really nice.
Yeah.
But, I wasn't there when. Ian
have you
was there.
read any of his books or? Have
Oh
you,
yeah, Ian. Persuasive Games is like one of the
yeah.
central to
Play
my
Anything is one of my
dissertation
favorite
work, and,
books of all time and stuff. So has he sort of had any influence on your sort of pedagogy or just kind of anything like that?
I ask my students who are interested in narrative to read BOGO stuff and to because I think of games as argumentation.
Mm-hmm.
So that is like a big part of like my background in game studies and how I think about games and how I make games and how I teach games. So that part of it is definitely in there. When it comes to, I don't know if I'd say he's like a direct influence on my pedagogy. I think my pedagogy has been built of like, welcome to Georgia Tech, you can do whatever you want in this course. Oh, also it starts 2 days from now. And me just went, like, okay, I kind of wanted this information a little bit sooner. So the pedagogy I've been like building. But like, I talked about MDM before. So MDM is one thing that I use from the design side. And then the tools-based game design is Stephen Werning. He wrote a book called Making Games: The Politics and Poetics of Game Tools. It's by MIT Press. And I wanted to say it was new, but I was thinking about it earlier. It's like 2019, which was like 1,000 years ago after this point, I think.
Yeah.
But those two have been like really central to my like pedagogy and how I think about design. But yeah, Bogos is definitely one of the names that's in there for how I think about game studies and how I incorporate that as well.
Do you know how he feels about AI? I haven't read anything he's written or anything like that.
I don't know, and I don't know him very well, but my assumption would be that he has things to say about it and doesn't like it. Or the complete opposite, that he absolutely loves it, just to throw you off the scent a little bit. But my thought would be he probably doesn't like it, but would be able to articulate it a lot better than me just guessing on like if he does or doesn't.
Yeah, I want AI that can make a game like his TSA game where you get arrested for trying to take hummus through TSA, or his got oil or weather games.
Thank you for the talk. I found it very insightful. But one thing that is kind of a question for me is so much of making games is about communication within the team, is a collaborative effort. Do you foresee any issues with using AI by, kind of reducing that collaboration in the team? Do you see that as an issue? Do you foresee that this might be an issue in the future? And do you have any solutions?
So that would be a matter of gradient to me. I think that if you introduce too much of it, that it would definitely break down your communications, and it isn't solving the problems that people would think that it is. If the idea of AI is to be more efficient, but you use too much of it, then it is exactly as you're saying. You're going to have to introduce more people into the equation to sort out the things that the AI are doing and making it so that they can actually work with one another. So I think that if we think of AI as a tool, and one of the tools that we're using in our toolkit to make games, that it's fine. If we are thinking of AI as a replacement for a human being who's just going to spit out all of this stuff, that you are losing, once again, all of the nuance in these sorts of things, and that you're going to need to like sort out the work and to actually like have someone who's doing that. So is this a matter of introducing more tools that will result in job loss because you need a fewer people, or is it going to be like many other historical technologies where it's just like it just creates new jobs because there's people who need to do it? Like we never had a photocopy repair person before we had the photocopier, but that is a whole thing. So it could be that in a corporate context that you have people whose job is to like sort out the things that AI is doing, so it's just like another management class in there. Or it could be that you have a bunch of other jobs of people who are like fitting into teams in that way. And on like a grassroots level, it could be a thing where you just don't use AI as much because it takes too much of this management.
And just a follow-up to that is, when you mention using AI as a tool, I think there are levels to that, that it is a little vague to me. So like, as a game designer, for example, what is the extent of which you would accept use of AI? You know, like, would it be, in your perspective, would it be okay if like somebody just gave a bunch of vague instructions to an AI agent and like, okay, why don't you develop this into a full idea? You know, like much of development of games is art, and like once you try to automate art, kind of becomes weird and icky to me. So what do you think about that?
So in terms of like how much of it I would accept, theoretically limitless. Like theoretically, you could potentially put together an amazing game using only AI tools, and I think that would be great. You know, in the same way that you use Unity as a tool, you use Excel to build your battle system, you use pencil and paper to draw your, like, it could be just another tool. I think right now we're at the point where it's, as you say, that it doesn't have the nuance that you can just throw everything into like an AI generator or different AI tools, I should say, and generate a game from it.
So like what that entail to me, like I'm a technical person, so like to me what this does, what like an LLM agent does, is just regurgitate what it has seen before. So there is a danger here of like reducing all of the designs into like a average annotator's knowledge of game design, and not have like novel things that come out of actually innovating in game design. Like I fear this future of game designers that have used AI all their life and cannot even conceive of a new game. Like we would lose the next Lucas Pope to make, you know, Papers, Please out of, you know, and we would like get into this point where everything is just average, because that's what AI does. It's just like averages out a bunch of vectors.
Yeah, so to some extent, like if you go through like Steam, for example, you're already finding a lot of stuff that's just dumped on there. And this is like pre-AI too. There was a lot of just like the so-called asset flips, where someone would just buy an asset pack from Unity, slap a title on it, and then put it on like onto the store. But those games don't tend to do very well. And I think that right now we're at a point with AI that if you just 100% AI generated everything in a game, that like it'll be functional, but it's not necessarily going to be the thing that's winning Game of the Year that everybody's talking about and wants to play and changes their lives and like is a culturally meaningful artifact to them. So maybe one day it can get there, but right now, like I'm not entirely sure. In terms of like pedagogy and teaching though, like watching someone experiment with that stuff to develop it into a tool so that we can be making culturally meaningful stuff out of it is like perfectly fine for me. I understand all the things that we say about like it taking away the rights of artists and like the negative things that AI can do. There's some equitability in it though, as well as not needing to have every one of these tools. I'm very lucky. I get a classroom full of students every semester. I can group them up into teams. They all have different abilities and they can make games together. There are so many cases where that's not possible, where there's like one person who wants to make a game. They can't do all of those things on their own. So learning how to use these tools and incorporate it will introduce more people to basic game design into the field, and potentially be a catalyst for like a lifelong thing that they want to do. So it has its positives, it has its negatives, but I think that we need to nuance that, to think about that, and to all in all, like we're in control of this. We get to decide how much of this is popularized and how much of this gets used. So let's use AI responsibly and all of that. I also realized that you can keep asking me questions. I'm not going to. I just noticed the time now, so I apologize for taking the question.
No, that was good. That was great. We're going to teach that questioner to learn to plug his games in his questions. And games is art like Light Break, which you can find on Steam, which is the Best in Georgia winner, which is Warren Spector's favorite game at DreamHack. So we'll teach you how to work that into your questions. AI will teach you how to do that. All right. So a big part of what we're doing with Transformer is that networking, meet people. That's why we have a coffee break scheduled after lunch, plus plus everyone needs coffee and more caffeine after that good carb-heavy lunch. So go ahead, grab some more coffee, caffeinate. Make sure you talk to someone. Turn to someone you haven't talked to already. Ask them a question about what you've done today. And come back at, I believe, 4? All right, come back in 10 minutes. He's got the flyers. We've been promoting this. There's actually monetary prizes. You all should have been taking part, winning some money for making your games. And I guess then if you have the flyers, you'll tell us about it. So, Fernando.
Absolutely. So I'll get into what I do for a living, I guess. But first, yes, I want to plug the Gwinnett County Public Library Game Jam. It's our 4th annual. We were accepting entries up into, I was about to say August 18th, but no, we're April 18th. And our showcase and award ceremony will be in downtown Lawrenceville at the Lawrenceville Arts Center during Free Comic Book Day, May 3rd. So definitely ask me questions about it later. I'd be happy to see y'all there. We got some good games submitted. So let's get started. So it's a perfect setup. You just had a presentation about teaching at Georgia Tech. Now I'm going to tell you about teaching at Gwinnett Technical College and Georgia State University. The session is going to be on Curricula Evolution in Artificial Intelligence for Gaming. There's me. All right. So full-time, I work at Gwinnett County Public Library as the Learning Lab supervisor. Think of them as maker spaces / digital studios. We do things like, we teach people how to do podcasting, video editing, sewing, game development, coding, all kinds of stuff. We got 9 of them across all 15 branches. That's my full-time job. I love it. I'm fortunate enough to also have a part-time job. I'm an adjunct at Gwinnett Technical College. I've been working there since 2020. And at Georgia State University, I started teaching, I started teaching there a few years ago in CMII. And yeah, it's been an adventure teaching game development. I'm going to butcher the quote, but it says something along the lines like, if you teach, you'll be taught. Definitely learn from the students along the way. So my stance on AI, and it's interesting because 2 of the classes that I teach at Gwinnett Technical College, and I have since 2020, is Introduction to Artificial Intelligence and Advanced Artificial Intelligence for Gaming. 2020 was before the big pop of ChatGPT, right? When it seemed like everything changed overnight. So now we're in 2025. I had to adjust the way I felt about AI because I found myself in quite a pickle. Here I am, an educator. Of course, in education, AI is changing everything. But one of the classes I teach is based on AI. So quite a pickle. How do I implement AI in a way that's ethical, but also teach the value of AI and keeping the students informed. So I evolved. Absolutely, when ChatGPT came out, I was like, no AI whatsoever. It's like I didn't want to acknowledge it, I'll be honest. Because in addition to teaching artificial intelligence, I was also teaching Introduction to Game Development and Advanced Game Development. And then around the same time when I started teaching at Georgia State, I teach Fundamentals of Game Art. So we got art going on. And then programming for games too. So, and then on top of that, I work at Gwinnett County Public Library. And like was mentioned earlier, librarians are magicians, right? Librarians are very knowledgeable individuals. And there's a fear in that field as well that, because people will come up to you and be like, oh, all those jobs are going to be taken. People can just ask ChatGPT research questions. It's like, no, like what was mentioned earlier, librarians are magicians. So as an educator, and working in the library space, and as a creator, so in 2016, I kickstarted a card game that I had been wanting to make for a very long time. It's Steal the Show, a theatrical party card game. I'm a Shakespeare nerd. I'm a gamer. And what it is, it's a Shakespearean insult party card game. So I did what any logical person does who's burnt out in their career. I was working in data analytics at the time. I quit my job and I was just like, I'm going to do Kickstarter. Why not, right? So it was a fun little time in my life, but I made 2 of the games, and it was a lot of work. As a creative, had to come up with the rules, had to play test. I'm not the best artist, so hiring artists at Artist Studio to do the wonderful artwork of the characters. We got Macbeth, Lady Macbeth, Kate. So yeah, if you're curious about Steal the Show, there is a video still on YouTube. If you Google game preview at Origins Game Fair 2017, you'll learn more about it. Actually, some of my students a couple weeks ago asked, they're like, what is your game about anyway? You kind of reference it sometimes. And I was just like, oh, and I pulled up that video, and they're like, whoa, that must have been like 20 years ago. Your hair is so black in that. And I was like, all right, I haven't graded your work yet, so no. But yeah, so as a creative, of course, I feel like, again, it's like, I don't know how I feel about AI, using art and things like that. So I evolved. I knew that I had to change my stance on generative AI and the use of AI in the classroom. So academic integrity, big thing. And of course, in my fundamentals of game art class, absolutely not. I'm not there yet. No generative AI. But in my programming for games class and my artificial intelligence classes for gaming, I say, this is what, it's a trust thing. I say that we've all been there where we spent late nights Googling, trying to debug our code. We end up in Stack Overflow, Unity forums, all of that, 2-3 hours. So I say, if you can use generative AI to debug your code, improve your code, and it only takes 5 minutes instead of 2 hours, do it. But what I ask is that you ask your new ChatGPT friend how they did it and understand it. But most importantly, double check it. Make sure it's doing what you want it to do. Because just because the code works doesn't necessarily mean, and just it works with no errors, no compile errors, doesn't mean that it's working as intended. So, to reinforce academic integrity, and I did this before generative AI, I start off the semester when I'm going over the syllabus, pretty much telling a story. And I'm going to tell the story to y'all. It's going to be very brief. So in high school, I was in a math class. It was algebra. And we were learning about sine, cosine, tangent, all this math. I was not a math guy. But anyways, what was going on is there was rampant cheating going on in the class. It was pretty bad. Some people knew the answers, and the answers were just, spreading across the classroom during test time, and that's just the way it was. One day, my teacher comes in, and he starts complimenting all of us. He's like, you guys are brilliant. I was grading your tests. I mean, y'all are like Einstein. You can do sine, cosine, tangent in your head. You don't have to show work. And he was just going on. And you can imagine how it felt in that class. And then he goes, seriously, guys, I know you cheated. I'm not going to do anything, but know this. You cheat on a test, you're going to cheat on your taxes, and then you're going to cheat on your spouse. And you'll always be a cheater. And then he just moved on to the next topic. Yeah, so every class, I always lead with that story, and they always ask, so did you? And I said, that's not part of the story. you know? So, but I love telling that story because I really hope that it really sinks in that you really are cheating yourself. And I find every opportunity to tell that story, by the way. Quick aside, in 2023, I was on a panel at the American Library Association conference on AI, and academic integrity came up. So of course I was like, I got a story for you. And I'd like to think that I said a lot of very intelligent things in that panel, and they were live tweeting. And this is what I'm known for. I live tweet. I always remember these words. You cheat on your test, and then you're going to cheat on your taxes, and then you're going to cheat on your spouse. Fernando Aragon. At Top Tech Trend 23. Thank you, American Library Association. So, I haven't seen the use of a meme or anything here. Maybe this has to be fuzzed out. But wise words. Just because you can doesn't mean you should, right? We know what movie that's from. Jurassic Park? Okay. Cool. So, evolution, artificial intelligence for gaming. Somebody didn't know Jurassic Park and had to look it up. No. So where do we go from here, right? I've been teaching artificial intelligence for gaming now for 5 years, and I can sum it up in 3 words. I don't know. I literally don't. I'm in it with everybody else. I'm learning as I go. My opinions change as there's new tools that come into the world, and that's where I'm at. I can honestly say I don't know. And that being said, being here, I've learned so much from all the speakers. It really has been a pleasure. And yeah, all right. So I say I don't know, but however. So what does the content of artificial intelligence for gaming class look like? So we start with what is game AI, and that's the illusion of intelligence. So in that chapter, we talk about how really with gaming, it's all about making it seem like it's intelligent, but we're not going to cover things like generative AI, machine learning, a lot of different algorithms there, all the different types of search. We're not going to get into detail there. It's just so much with artificial intelligence. So setting the tone that we're talking the illusion of intelligence. That being said, we do focus on some things that lead to assignments that then they can use and build into their final game. So, oh my goodness, I'm running low on time already. Okay, we'll speed things up. So finite state machines, there we're just using conditionals, switch statements. We do things like patrol, chase, attack, evade, things like that. We do randomness and probability, so we might do an assignment where it's a slot machine, so they learn randomness and probability. NPCs and branching narratives, this is where we've evolved, and I'll get into that in a second. But previously what we'd do is we'd use Ink by Inkle Studios. It's great narrative scripting language, and you can do all of your narrative in your game, and there's Unity plugins, and you can create some really cool NPCs with that. We use Unity's nav mesh, A-star pathfinding to again create that smart AI agent that's going to come and get you. And then procedural content generation and fuzzy logic. Okay, so this is where we've evolved. This is what my classes look like now. So we get into NPCs and branching narratives, and we start with a brief intro in the generative to AI, what is game AI section. So before I get into the actual Unity assignment, I want to show you all some student feedback from that assignment. First, My favorite experience is trying to narrow the scope of what a chatbot can say reference. I would most likely use it for a project that multiple characters that warrant more lifelike experiences, but not anytime soon. I most enjoyed messing with different prompts that we controlled with the LLMs and breaking them. But this brings concerns of LLMs in games, as ultimately they can be unpredictable and could take a rated teen game to a rated mature game pretty quick. I'm kind of concerned that we might slowly rely on it more and more and won't be able to come up with the original ideas of our own. This is kind of a long one. Having NPCs who can respond to whatever the player says could add really interesting dynamics to dialogue. It'll require a lot of testing to make sure that NPCs don't respond with anything inappropriate, but with proper testing and making sure the LLM is able to direct conversations where they need to go, it could help players feel more immersed in the game. I enjoyed playing around with parameters of the LLM. I'm keen to use LLMs in future games to boost NPC dialogue and storytelling. My main concerns are performance and unpredictable outcomes. So this was feedback after what we did in class. We downloaded a local open source model. We did Llama 3.2. And using a Unity asset, and I'll get into which one it was, we were able to then import that model into the game and handle dialogue. And we had some fun with NPCs. I'm hoping that this will pique your interest, that you look into these things like open source models. Olama is a great website where you can download models. Once you download Olama in the terminal, you can download various models, and then you can run them straight in the command line. And we'll get into that in a second. So if we wanted to modify that model to get it to behave a certain way, we could do a simple model file where we focus on a few things: the system, the temperature, the top P, the top K, and the repeat penalty. Now, the values here and the prompt, "you are a helpful NPC that always responds the same way," is going to be very, it's not going to be very creative and kind of boring, and it's just going to be straight to the point, kind of conservative. So what does that do? You modify these things. Like in this case, I don't want an NPC that's boring. I want an NPC that's a farmer in my game. So here, notice that I put, "You're a humble farmer living in a peaceful village. You love to talk about crops, seasons, livestock, and daily life on the farm. You don't know much about the outside world beyond farming." And then I changed the temperature to 0.4, top P to 0.8, top K to 40, and repetition penalty 1.2. So those are the things that you tweak to make your AI model that you're using for the NPCs a little more interesting. So I do want to show you a brief Unity demo here, and just so you can see what they did. And I want to make sure that we give props to the person who created this. LLM for Unity, it's an asset store in the Unity asset store, and it's great. So just by downloading this, you're then able to use the Unity plugin and tinker around with it. So I'm going to close out of this for a second. Okay, here we go. So this is a sample that's already, I guess I got to change the screen mirroring. Okay. So this is, I'm running this in Unity right now, and by default, if I ask it something like, we're going to keep this simple, "Who are you?" And this is all done locally. This isn't connected to the internet. That's another thing that, so here it's just telling us it's a language model, talking about its capabilities, how can I help you? Well, this isn't going to help me if I want it to create, if I want it to be behind an NPC that's like a farmer, right? So the cool thing, what I just showed you with the model file where you're creating the system dialogue, the temperatures, and all that, with this plugin, they have it nice and neat in the inspector, so students can do this assignment in class. This is a great assignment to do in your class because this whole thing could take less than an hour. But here we have a chat between curious human, ... right? So if I wanted to change it to be that farmer, say, you are a farmer that knows nothing about the outside world, but you always want to sell corn. Always respond asking if they want to buy corn. Want to buy corn after answering their prompt. Okay, so I'm going to save that. And through the magic of this asset, now I'm back to this same scene, but I can say, who are you? I'm just a simple farmer living on my farm out in the fields. I grow all sorts of crops, but my pride and joy is corn. There's nothing better than seeing that golden yellow crop stretching out as far as the eye can see. Say, would you like to buy some corn? I've got a fresh batch just waiting to be sold. And let's do, who is the best Batman actor? We'll just ask it who the best Batman actor is. Well, he doesn't know anything about the Batman actor. Now, the correct answer is Michael Keaton, but the farmer would not know that. All right. Using this tool, that's what they gave feedback on, and you saw how it's kind of all over the place. There's that fear that that AI is like, oh man, it's like it's taking the creativity away, and then others are like, yeah, I'd like to explore this a little more. But this is the way that I've introduced generative AI into my artificial intelligence classes, is introducing generative AI, mainly the local open source models, because there's so many out there. I will say that there was let's pull this up, get back to my presentation, which is almost over. So there was, the classes, they were having fun with it. They were trying to break the LLMs, which they successfully did. But there was one that was really funny, and I kind of wrote it down. Let's see. Yeah, so the gist of it was, rather than putting in like, you're a farmer, it was, you're a game development instructor who does not know current slang, but tries really hard to be cool. Not going to brag, or was it, no, not, yeah, they say they're not going to admit it, but they are not cool. And I was kind of offended because I try to use the current slang in my classes, and yeah, anyways, they entered that into the Unity system prompt for the LLM, and they're like, oh my God, Aragon, this sounds just like you. And yeah, it was very accurate. No cap, right? But yeah, this is the kind of a little preview that I recreated. Who are you? Yo, what's good, fam? I'm your boy, Instructor Vinny. I didn't say Aragon there, but they're about dropping knowledge and all that. And then on a serious note, yeah, I'll leave that up there a little bit for y'all to see. I've seen it all go from 8-bit to 4K. No. But then on a serious note, I was like, okay, well, can you explain fuzzy logic to me? Yo, let me break down fuzzy logic for you, my dude. Clear his throat. No. So it is kind of neat to see it like that as well, because in terms of education, AI can definitely be used as a tool and like a personal tutor for students. Of course, you have to have those guardrails. So I'm going to close with this because I know I'm at 4:02. I want to encourage you to experiment when these things come out. I have, like I mentioned, like I work full-time at the library. I teach part-time at Georgia State. I teach part-time at Gwinnett Tech. I have 2 daughters who are at home alone. They're 10 and they're 5. There's food on the ground. There's water on the ground. They will be fine. They're cats. Just want to make that clear. But I tell them that if I can find time to try to stay up to date with what's going on, then they should as well. Because ultimately, when they graduate, the students who are familiar with what's happening in AI and can speak to it and have messed around with it are going to be much more valuable than those who just graduated and avoided AI because they just didn't feel like they were ready for it. You got to be ready for it. You got to be curious. So I will end with that. I do have one more slide. Thank you. Oh, stay up here. The other mic? Oh, we're doing questions. Oh, man.
I'll let you get it without questions, plus Bob's still another 5 minutes out.
Okay.
So as I run it through here, first question for you. I love the tools you give the students for it, and I like the parameters that are set up there, like temperature, et cetera. Any other parameters you wish they had in that tool?
Any other parameters?
Et cetera. Yeah.
Yeah, actually, I've given that a lot of thought, and I'm sure there might be a way when I open the script that's attached to that game object that has all that. But definitely the top P, and the reason for that is that's really what a low value makes it, I guess, more creative, and a higher value makes it more predictable. So if you crank up, like for example, that farmer, and you increase that value, then the farmer is probably going to lean on their objective of selling that corn harder than answering the question. They're going to be less creative. So that's one that I think would be neat. And I'm sure you can probably do it. Oh, yeah.
Can you tell us more about the AI tool, the plugin? Like, what are the other what are the other settings that is accessible? Do you know? Like,
for the one I showed in Unity?
Yeah, for the plugin, like, because I know there are different distilled versions of Llama. Like, do you have the chance to like choose whichever one you want to choose based on like the resources that are available?
Yeah, absolutely. So the neat thing, and again, I can't get into the depth of it because I've just recently started playing around with it, but the cool thing with Ollama, you can download multiple models. So there's like Mistral, Ollama, there's DeepSeek, there's all of them that you can download. Some have already been trained. But the cool thing is with Ollama, that you can run from the terminal where you can make these model files. Like for example, this farmer here, I can save this as the model file, and using the prompt, the terminal, I can create a new model, which is Llama, but with these parameters. And then that model, I can then put in that LLM for Unity plugin. So it's pretty cool. There's a lot to it that I don't know, though.
And I'm sorry, I psyched you out about more questions. Our next speaker is here. So thank you again, Fernando. Great stuff, and I know there are a lot of questions on it. Bob, come on up.
So one more thing, I want to mention the game jam again. So one of the things that I have my students do at the end of all of my classes is they have to make a final project. They build up to a final game with what they've learned. And in the spring, I strategically have it to where they start their final project when the game jam theme is announced. And then it's due right before the game jam is done accepting entries, so it goes for 6 weeks. So if you go to the Gwinnett County Public Library's itch.io page for the game jam, and I'll give out some flyers, you can play some of those games. There's quite a bit of students' games from this semester, so I hope you guys make it out on May 3rd. And I look forward to talking to y'all more after this.
Thank you. Yay.
An independent film director and producer, professional media advisor, voice actor, audio director, and voice coach who's known for voicing anime and video game characters in such series as our beloved Dragon Ball Z, Pokemon Masters, Multiversus, the Street Fighter series, Mortal Kombat 9, Smite, Lifeless Planet, Destiny 2, and many other video games. Bob has owned the Neighborhood Studio in Atlanta since 2016, where he proudly continues to help aspiring creatives become working creatives, which is most importantly right now, right? So with that, this is Bob Carter, and he's going to be talking about AI and voice acting. All right, give him a big round of applause. Woo!
It's not working, that's fine. More than just voice acting today, I'm actually going to be talking about being creative, and that's with a capital C. I help aspiring creatives become working creatives, and especially in this day and age, that's what we all are. Whether you're into animation, whether you're into voice, whether you're an actor, whether you're a cinematographer, an editor, it's all about digital media and the ways that we manipulate that. The ways that we incorporate that, whether we record it, whether we edit it, whether we enhance it, whether we modify it, all of these things. They're all based on certain core principles that we've all learned, hopefully we've all learned, or we're learning now. I actually worked on this project 3 different times, and just so you know, from a working session perspective, this is the kind of stuff that happens all the time where you'll work on a project and then you'll think about knowing who your target audience is, right? Being able to read the room. When I first did this was going to be a deep dive because I'd been speaking to Dove and a couple of the guys, and and I was going to show them the nuts and bolts of everything from my daily workflow, right? The projects that I'm working on, where I'm keeping myself relevant, where I'm using my own voice through 11 Labs. Anybody here know what 11 Labs is? That's good. For those who don't know what 11 Labs is, it is an extremely controversial application and website where they're applying voiceover to just about every model that there is. The acting industry hates 11 Labs. Most of them hate 11 Labs because, again, when change happens to us, it's fearful. When change comes from us, it can be a good thing. Before I learned how to use 11 Labs, I was terrified because if you look February, January, even the first week of March of last year, the actor strike had happened, everything was going crazy, the industry was changing, companies were constantly looking for other alternatives than to pay creatives for voice work, for on-camera work. And I cannot tell you the amount of sleepless nights that I had personally where I was terrified that my livelihood was coming to an end. I have already been burned by AI. There is a project called Amazon Polly, P-O-L-Y. Some of the industry people in here might know about this. You can go ahead and look it up, Amazon Polly, P-O-L-Y. My wife is the voice of the Amazon Kindle Fire. January 18th, 19th, I know this because 8 days after she gave birth to our firstborn, she recorded for 14 days at GM Voices, which is now Blend in Alpharetta, and she recorded a text-to-speech project. That's also where Susan Bennett recorded Siri, right, the voice of Apple. September Day Carter was the voice of the Amazon Kindle Fire. Now, she recorded that for a company known as Ivona, which was then bought out by Amazon. Ivona paid her for that project. Amazon did not pay her for any of the other projects that they then used her voice for. And over the years, we have heard her voice from ONN. Anybody know the brand for Walmart? Like when you hit a power on button on a sound bar and it says power on. That's my wife's voice. Stars on Mars on Fox. We heard that one. It's an AI voice. That's my wife's voice. When you call, I want to say Charter Communications, and you get the automated voice response, that's my wife's voice. There's a new robotics company with, like these new robotic nurses that are really popular this year and last year that came out. If you Google it on YouTube, that's my wife's voice. There's a Kaylee doll, which is kind of like honestly, it's like Megan, but it's an actual small doll for children that's, it's like a safe Siri from Apple, right, where you can ask it anything. That's my wife's voice. And then most recently, some really bizarre stuff. We just found this out like 3 weeks ago. When you Google Bambi sleep, it is a whole weird, freakish thing. I didn't even know about this. That is my wife's voice. And we found out that now hundreds of thousands of people have been using her voices over the years for everything. And when I say everything, I mean everything from adult content to rated G, to medical devices, to any and everything now, because Amazon Web Services, you guys are familiar with AWS, they offer Amazon Polly as an enhanced feature that you can pay for, right? But they're not telling people that those are actually recorded voices, like September Day Carter's voice, and she doesn't get paid for any of that. So my family and I have been directly hurt by artificial intelligence using our voices without paying us. Now I'm saying this because, again, change is scary when it happens to us, but it's a good thing when it comes from us. So last year, I had to learn, as an actor, I was terrified of this, didn't want to deal with this, but I had to learn how to protect my voice. As a studio owner, because I have students and I have to lead by example, practice what I preach, I had to learn how to properly use this. So I learned about 11 Labs. And then actually at SimFest last year, when I was giving my speech, I had been using 11 Labs for about 3 weeks. And you know, the best proof is when you get paid for your voice, passive income. And I got paid from 11 Labs. My first week, I think I made $78. My second week, I made $170. My third week, I became a featured voice in 11 Labs, made like $780. And then after that, I never made less than $350. Now that's passive income. That's a wonderful thing. That's, you know, you're asleep and you're making money. So what happens, again, from a working standpoint, a rising tide raises all ships, right? 11 Labs gave a lot more small indie studios access to quality voiceover. Now this is controversial because again, a lot of people don't want to use AI because they feel like they're selling themselves out. But in an industry where we're already being currently devalued constantly, this was an opportunity to protect our voice and get the right monetization that we deserved. They're already using AI for everything from game development, coding, HR. Every application that you can imagine in the industry is currently being used, and somehow AI is being used to enhance that. AI is just a tool. It is not going to replace what we can do as long as we innovate and as long as we're creative. Are there concerns about having our voices taken, about having our intellectual property taken? Absolutely. Absolutely. Every aspect of our lives is changing. I was so blown away by what I was experiencing last year and concerned because in addition to being a studio owner, I also happen to be involved in the community. And I sat in on this interesting forum where I learned that by the latter part of this year, 2025, they said 40%, 40, not 14, but 40% of all retail, warehouse, military, logistics, and what was the fifth one? Retail, warehouse, military, logistics, and warehouse jobs are going to be transformed because of AI. And I was thinking about that. We're already seeing that. When you go to the drive-thru now, right, at fast food restaurants, when you're going to the movie store, when you go into the movies, you're paying for your own kiosks, right? And even the people that are filling up the popcorn for us, they're not necessarily talking to us. When you go to check out at the grocery store, we're dealing with our own things. AI is already here. Quietly, it's here. Now the question is, how are we going to use this? How are we going to protect ourselves? I was very concerned about this. I mean, my voice is all over the internet anyway, from being the voice of Balrog and having pristine, clear audio where people are using that to give me my own voice references in terms of characters that I've recorded. People could try to rip my voice and then use that without paying me. They could do that, but the possibility of that happening is lessened if I'm giving them an avenue where they can pay for it that's within their budget. So it's one of those lesser of two evil kind of situations, and by using 11 Labs, I'm able to control who's able to use my voice and how they're able to use my voice. There are also other companies, you know how the music industry has done a really good job of protecting their IP using like BMI and ASCAP, and actually AI. They use AI, Veritone, to scrub YouTube and scrub the internet to protect their intellectual property. We can do this. We're currently doing this. I mean, I'm sure you guys have seen some of the lawsuits where Meta is dealing with a lot of trouble from scrubbing pirated sites, right? And a lot of these authors are very, very upset about this sort of thing. But again, this is already an issue that we're all dealing with. Now, I cannot control the tides. I cannot control large, massive corporations. I cannot control massive industries. But if I need to take care of the livelihood of my family, I need to be adaptable. You cannot control this. You can't stop AI, right? This is already happening. It's happening, just like a cell phone. We have to have our cell phones these days. Just like a computer, we have to have a computer these days. AI is just a tool, and we have to know how to use this tool. How many people here have not done anything with AI? Raise your hand. It's okay if you haven't. You might be personally opposed to it. It's perfectly fine. Okay, that's fine. There are a couple of sites I'm going to go ahead and recommend. Go ahead and write this down. Actually, pull it up on your cell phone. Obviously, there's ChatGPT. I actually prefer, I can't believe I'm saying this, Copilot. I can't believe I'm saying that. I have a problem with that, but believe it or not, I think Copilot's a little bit better than ChatGPT. And then DeepSeek. And you know how ChatGPT is really upset because DeepSeek is better than ChatGPT and they were actually using some of their stuff and they're all upset about it? Well, if they did that to us, we can do it to them. So I like using DeepSeek as well. I'm also going to recommend for you Suno. Now, Suno will bring out the child in you. Suno is absolutely one of my favorite uses of AI because it's silly and stupid and fun and playful. And I have used Suno for Andrew Greenberg's birthday party to play songs. I've used, you can use Suno, basically it's a songwriting app where you can make music. And it's silly and it's fun and it's playful, but it will help you play and help you learn how to begin to think creatively to use AI. So I want you to write down Suno, get yourself a free subscription to it, but it's actually worth the money because it's silly and it's goofy and you can make up your own theme music constantly. In addition to that one, Descript. I got to thank Drew Pearson for this one. Descript is fantastic for a creative flow. It's phenomenal in terms of editing, and it's phenomenal in terms of ease of editing, because there are some here who are aspiring creatives, but they don't necessarily know all the ways to use Premiere Pro or Adobe Audition or DaVinci Resolve or Audacity or many different creative, whether it's a digital audio workstation, whatever your creative workstation is that you prefer, Descript will help you. This is another one that I want you to play on. Just learn how to use it. Mess up with it. Again, we mostly learn by playing, which is why the Georgia game developers are awesome, right? Gamification of everything. But I want you to learn by playing and by doing these things. Now, again, I had this whole deep dive in terms of the technicalities of everything, and of course, let's see, nope, still not logged in. But in this case, I'm just going to keep it at a high level because we're going to talk about a lot of these issues, whether it's right or how it's right or some of the challenges, but also some of the benefits. Because, like I said, last year I learned how to use AI. This year, I'm learning how to accelerate my use of AI. In many of the industries today, everybody's freaked out because things are contracting, right? Well, believe it or not, from a voiceover standpoint, things are actually exploding right now. 11 Labs was wonderful for me last year. This year, I'm applying my own creative twists on it. I'm leveraging my automated voice, Metabob 2.0 as some people like to call it. And not only am I getting paid from other people using my voice, but more importantly, because I know what I can do with my voice, I'm leveraging that to narrate the classics, to narrate my own stories. If you want to use ChatGPT to help you get the formatting down of some great creative story that you've started but haven't been able to finish because you've got ADHD, you can use ChatGPT, or in my case, Copilot, because it's better for long-form narration. You can use, Bookle. There are a lot of different sites that you can try, and more importantly, your own ideas that you've been working on. You can use AI as a catalyst for your own creative thoughts and ideas. Then you can put a voice to it. You can put music underneath it. And then you can even put pictures to it. And this is where we're all going to make money. Because there are a lot of people right now, whether you're on Fortnite or Roblox, who are making mods, right? Whether it's layouts for Fortnite, skins for Fortnite, skins for Roblox. My own 12-year-old son is starting to make skins now through Roblox Studio, and he's got all these different ideas. But more importantly, as a voice actor, as a creative, for any of us, Pocket FM is another huge opportunity for you. Pocket FM is a serialized, I'm not just gonna call it like Spotify, because you can also apply visuals to it, but it's a subscription-based model, and you get paid for your own creativity. Now, of course, they're gonna get paid, but it's actually a more balanced way to pay, and this industry is exploding. We are consuming content at a much greater pace than ever before in history. We've got an entire generation that grew up on YouTube, right? They don't even watch TV anymore. They don't even watch Netflix. They're not even watching long-form content because they're all watching TikTok videos and YouTube videos. Well, guess what? The new generation and other generations are all listening more to audio dramas more. And so not only is my voice being used, but other people's voices are being used in an amazing and dramatic way. And your own ideas can now be used with voice. You can upload that to Pocket FM, and you can get paid for your own creative ideas with your voice or with somebody else's voice. I'm hoping that you'll choose to use some of the neighborhood studio talents' voices, because that's what we're doing. We're keeping it in the neighborhood. So we're actually paying our talent, like our roster of talent, by paying each other in our community. So this is like local, right? And then you can actually have these creative productions that are getting uploaded globally, because Pocket FM is booming right now. In an industry where everything creatively seems to be contracting, Pocket FM is exploding all over the world. They're opening up offices globally, regionally, because they need this stuff translated in every language. Then, of course, you can do that, whether it's through 11 Labs, because it can translate internationally. You can still use my voice and have me speaking Chinese, have me speaking French, have me speaking German. But more importantly, you can also use your own ideas with your own visuals, with your own music, with your own editing. See what I'm saying? I'm giving you guys the opportunity to apply your own skills that you have right now and get paid for that right now, so that you're not waiting for somebody else to hire you and drag all that out, because that automated AI process sucks. Does that make sense? Okay, questions? Yes. Anybody? Okay, sure. All right.
So as I'm running the mic, what's been your favorite use of your voice in a project that you did not oversee?
That I did not oversee?
Or that you did?
Sure, there
Or
would
that
be
you did
one.
oversee.
It's called The Crossroads. Absolutely brilliant. It's like from Twisted Button Productions. Definitely look that up. It's a really cool serialized audio production. Randomly, a buddy of mine said, "Hey, did you voice this?" Where somebody was using me as the Thing in an audio drama from Fantastic Four that's on, oh God, what's it called? It's like Ben Grimm versus Silver Surfer and Galactus, and it's a really cool like stop motion film fan video that's online. Oh, and then another one, oh God, what's it called? My son's gonna kill me because I can't believe I'm going blank on the name. Stickmen, who, it was at AC20, 2020, amazing, super fast martial arts, the Stickmen. You guys know what I'm talking about, right? The serialized 3 episodes of like Stick Fighters. I think it's Stick Fighters, right? So it's the new generation of Stick Fighters. Somebody used my voice for a boss on that. That was amazing. That's absolutely one of the best projects that I've seen. Like I've got chills right now thinking about that one. Yes?
Thank you for your presentation. I'm curious, based on the experiences that you've shared, what is the value of having disclaimers from a creative perspective going forward? Is there any, in terms of just making sure that when you put something out there, you have a disclaimer that speaks to how? Do you think having that at the very designing phase could be of value to avoid some of the mishaps?
Yeah, disclaimers matter. There are certain projects that I've done where they've used AI writers and they've promised not to use your voice for AI. However, there are also other like major corporations, right? Whether it's iHeart, Cumulus, like all the radio stations all around the world, they're trying to use AI right now. But the cool part is you also have indie radio stations that are using AI. Here's another cool one. In Athens, what's the cool radio station in Athens? Wait, 100, 101, something like that? Anyway, so my wife was the station ID voice, and then I've heard my voice used randomly on some of those commercials, which was interesting. But it's allowing indie studios, obviously, to build up their podcast, right? Because everybody has a podcast these days. Now, whether it has consistency, that's when you want to contact me at the neighborhood studio, because I teach people how to have a podcast that'll run for years. But everybody can compete now, right? We've got a much larger marketplace for creators and creatives. So as far as those disclaimers go, it helps. It can help. Right? I mean, again, you've got grounds if somebody uses your information and your content and your intellectual property. However, it's only as effective as people when they obey the law, and then you got to wonder, does anything matter anymore? Right? So, I mean, again, we're in this interesting stage of history where we have to show things still matter, right? So we can't get jaded because the courts have checks and balances, and people are taking people to court, and they are suing them, and they are making sure that they're maintaining their rights, and then people are paying money, and then they are paying out, and then you do have ongoing payments. Sure.
Do we have any of the folks who are doing demos in here right now, or all out there setting up?
We got a couple of questions?
Yeah, we have folks who are going to do presentations about their demos.
Gotcha.
Okay, well, then we'll keep doing questions.
Yes.
Okay, so earlier you mentioned how on YouTube there's a whole mechanism using AI to recognize different kinds of media, songs, all those things to make sure there's no infringements happening.
Yes.
So is there like...
It's selectively used, by the way. Remember, not everybody pays for Veritone.
Okay.
Remember that. YouTube, of course, pays because they can be sued by BMI and ASCAP because they're looking out for their artists, right?
Okay.
So they're scrubbing with AI, but if it's just a parody or if it's somebody that's quote unquote not large,
it's not as like... They're
it's
not
not
as
as, yeah,
enforcing.
right.
Okay. I guess, and my question, okay, interesting. So with 11 labs, are they also implementing any kind of AI to help protect you? Like
Yes.
oh, cool.
Yeah, so they have what's called active moderation, where, you know, like let's say you don't want to do certain things that are just going to be wrong. You know what I mean? Like certain types of language. You wouldn't want to say certain types of words, or you wouldn't want to do certain types of content, right? So you can have that, and you can keep your voice from being used for that. Now, there are other apps and other companies that use AI voices, so that can be an issue with those other companies, right, if they're not doing those same protections. And that's why I like 11 Labs, because they do have an ethical responsibility, and they are taking care of their talent, and they are making every effort to make sure that we're being properly used. And again, the proof is in the pudding, and I've had certain, let's say that I've got certain neighbors who have blown up, absolutely blown up on like, again, so these audiobooks were Pocket FM or whatever, when they use that voice, they'll make $3,000 in a month, right? They'll make $2,000 in a week. They'll make, $1,500 in a week for these app readers. So it's real money, it's passive income, and it's quality. And that's also using your voice. Let's say that you've narrated audiobooks. You're not being paid on those voices that you've used in the past, but you can take those old recordings, you can upload them, and that way you can get paid for your own voices that you aren't being paid for currently anymore. Yeah.
Thank you. I guess I kind of have two questions, but the first one is more so about licensing, and I know you mentioned that. What is your verbiage, or are you partnering with people to kind of create verbiage?
Look, when it comes to licensing, you're going to want to talk to an attorney.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm only talking about real world,
of course,
real issue.
No, I guess I wasn't asking.
So talk to an attorney about licensing.
No. Yeah.
So.
I guess I really wasn't asking like for your legal opinion.
Okay.
More so, are you getting legal opinion on that? Are you doing that, or are you kind of researching it on your own?
Okay.
I mean, both. No, look, nobody cares about your business like you and your mom, and
It's
usually
true.
your mom can't help you market. So you got to market yourself, right?
True.
I mean,
And-
you know, if your mom does help you market, congratulations.
Yeah.
But in all seriousness, I've been burned
Yes.
repeatedly. I've made a lot of mistakes.
Yeah.
So the good news is, when it comes to business, when it comes to being a creative, we have to be resilient, right?
Yeah.
We have to be resilient. We have to be able to bounce back. Remember that. I'm rubber, you're glue, whatever you say bounces off of me
Yeah.
and sticks to you. But also, if we're being creative with a capital C, then we're constantly innovating, and they can't keep up with what we're doing. And we can out-create somebody who's just trying to come up, okay? Again, we're all in a creative industry. We have to realize our own value, and we have to protect our value. We have value, and so we have to value ourselves. The thing is, the interesting thing is, for all these people that were doing like Fiverr and all these, there are certain pay-to-play sites that were like just cheap, right? Just totally cheap. First of all, pimping ain't easy, but hoeing's harder, and we're happy, hard-working hoes, but stay off of Fiverr, okay? You know what? Even as I say stay off of Fiverr, I have students who love Fiverr. They've used Fiverr. Fiverr's helping them succeed. People are finding work on Fiverr. So more power to them. Congratulations. This is just my opinion, right? This is just my opinion. So again, there are many different sites. Whatever site you're using, as long as you're not hurting anybody, mentally, physically, emotionally, financially, congratulations, you do you, get paid, right? So as far as licensing goes, talk to an attorney. As far as what we're doing, I mean, you know, we're trying to make stuff. And we want people to not steal our stuff. So the problem is, it's going to happen, right? When you make something, when you're original, people copy that constantly. So if you're going to be a leader, then you've got to continue to lead creatively. That's the important thing.
Great Bob Carter! All right, we have some demos now for everyone, so Dove, take it away.
Okay, yeah, this is a tough act to follow, but I got my own mic here. We have the next order of business is that we're going to go outside and enjoy some one-on-one demonstrations, tabletop demonstrations. But before we go, the two demonstrators will give us a little preview of what we can see on their tables. And coming up right now, we have Chris Burris. Chris comes all the way from Tulsa, Oklahoma. Is that where he is? Where he's at the University of Tulsa and teaches, he's a instructional assistant professor of computer simulation and gaming. And he specializes in 3D modeling, animation, character design, all the good stuff. And now he's going to talk about how he integrates AI into it. Take it away, Chris.
So I brought today with me a poster presentation from one of my students. I'm the facilitator of his research, and he's been doing some research on implementing AI to create 3D models for a virtual reality nursing simulation. And so he's been going through the process of finding out what he can online about other research that has been done in this area already. One of his big areas of research at the moment is overcoming the uncanny valley. How many of you heard of the uncanny valley? Yeah, several of you. The uncanny valley, for those of you who don't know, is the area when we start making things look like people. So as you start off with stick figures, you get more and more complex cartoons, et cetera, and then as you get more and more realistic, suddenly your believability in this character to be alive drops off the face of the earth. And so he's been doing research into how quickly you can get to that level without making somebody think, oh my gosh, that thing's not human, get away from me. And so he's been starting on his research toward that. There's a reason why Pixar sticks with the cartoony look instead of trying to go super realistic. It's because of that uncanny valley. Anyways, his research is on that. He's trying to use some online free resources to try and generate these characters and get them rigged and then put into VR. But he's right at the start of his research presentation. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, if it makes me feel better, makes you feel better, I'll hold it. But it sounds like it's on now. So, yeah, I'm Kevin Markley. Nice to meet you guys. I used to work with Kennesaw. I was a lecturer as well as a VR software developer for Kennesaw. I believe I was the only position in the university like that. And since then, and in that role too, I worked with the Office of Research. We've created some AI projects together. We have one that we're going to show off in a little bit. This was shown off at our Pechacucha night, and it's tentatively called like research avatars. And effectively, what it lets you do is, whoever you are as a researcher, maybe you're doing biomedical stuff, or you're doing whatever with like cells, or I guess that's kind of similar, but maybe you're doing software engineering as well. You can now put it into our kind of program here that the Office of Research still has, and it can translate that into different languages. It can talk about it to people off campus or outside of the university. So that's kind of the general goal with that research project or that project. And I believe they're wanting to kind of finish it a little bit more up before it becomes fully publicly available, but you do get to kind of try it out, see how useful it is to kind of talk to someone. I know it's technically an AI, but you can effectively talk to someone about someone else's research and get an idea about what that is. So it's not just as obtuse as kind of hitting your head on a big research paper and being like, do I know how to read a research paper? Am I hitting the titles and subsections and going through? And then like maybe I find the one little chunk that I care about, or the graphic, right? Or maybe I care about the whole paper, but I don't know how to summarize it, all that sort of stuff. This sort of project is able to do that, and all in a very conversational way. And that's just kind of the big demo thing that we have here to show off. But effectively, I've been working in that sort of industry and with those sort of projects for a while. I did recently leave Kennesaw, so I actually started another position, much fancier title, like Director of Immersive Technology. So I did stay with VR and all that sort of stuff. So I do have a big interest in VR, XR, which includes VR, virtual reality, mixed reality, augmented reality, all that sort of stuff. So it's not just AI that I've worked with. And that project too also has another goal of getting into virtual reality and augmented reality. Any questions for me?
They can ask questions there, so do anyone else?
Okay. Cool. Awesome. Thanks.
Thank you all very much. Kevin, check out the demos. Talk to each other. Some of us will be hanging out for a bit. And tomorrow, 10 a.m., our keynote, Luke Dickin, will tell you how the industry is actually using all this stuff. And then stay for all the workshops. Tomorrow's the Power Day. So this is the actual application of all the theory we discussed today. Theory day today, application day tomorrow. So come on back, 10 a.m. English building. Not this building, the English building. And we'll have more information up on the web. And we'll see you all tonight or tomorrow.